Welcome, detectives. Are you ready to solve some puzzles? Here are 5 riddles that will make your brain cry for help. Mrs. Emma was a young principal. She decided to get rid of all thefts that were frequent there. Someone stole phones, and no teacher could figure out who he or she was. Mrs. Emma started to carefully watch all students. After another theft, Mrs. Emma suspected several students and asked them about what they were doing during the theft.
I got sick and had to leave my last lesson.
I had my Dutch lesson. I am going to Denmark with my parents next week.
I went to an extra baseball lesson.
Mrs. Emma immediately realized that one of the students was lying. Who is lying? Bob was lying. He said that he studied Dutch because of his trip to Denmark, but it's Danish that is spoken in Denmark. Ethan stayed late in the library. Finally, he was about to head home. He was walking along the dark hall when he heard someone screaming.
Help! Help! I'm here!
The voice comes from the locker room. He goes to the locker room and opens the door.
Noah, who closed you here?
I have no idea. I went to the cafeteria, but it was closed today. I decided to go home when someone put the garbage bag on my head and closed me here.
I will find out who did it.
In the morning, Ethan interrogated all his classmates.
I was doing my homework in the classroom.
I had lunch in the cafeteria and then went to play tennis.
I was with Daniel, but I went home earlier.
I was sick yesterday.
Who locked up Noah? Sophia is lying. The cafeteria was closed yesterday. It's assessment week at Hillston University. 4 students decided to make friends with a professor before the exam, hoping he would grade them more gently. The students learned that he had one weakness. He was obsessed with Africa. At the break, the students came up to him and began telling him their own stories about Africa.
Unfortunately, so far I've only been to the north of Africa.
I love photography. Last time in the Sahara Desert I got some great kangaroo shots.
I am so excited to volunteer in West Africa this summer.
I help at the zoo and often travel to Africa. One time I saved the life of a baby elephant.
Who's lying to the professor? Evan is lying because kangaroos only live in Australia. There was a party hosted by Eric and his wife. Every time a guest came, the owner's dog barked. Several guests did not like it. Tanner and Melissa even had a fight with Eric, asking him to lock the dog somewhere. The next morning, some neighbors heard Eric scream and a gunshot. The police arrived and found him dead. The police interviewed those who had a fight with Eric.
We had a little conflict yesterday, but I would not kill him.
Because of the dog, they quarreled with Tanner. She barks at everyone except the owners.
I have not been home all day. I cannot imagine who could do this.
Who is the murderer? The murderer is Eric's wife. The neighbors said they heard a scream and a shot. If someone else was the killer, the neighbors would have heard a dog barking. A rich woman was killed between 8 to 10 p.m. There are 4 suspects among her closest friends. James, her nephew, a graduate without a job yet. Dr. Christina, her family doctor for 25 years. Louis, her cousin, who is in depression because his friend Jane died a week ago. Mr. Danny, her lawyer, who ran all her affairs.
I was in my job interview.
I was operating a patient.
I was having dinner with my friend Jane.
I was leaving the courtroom.
Who is lying? It's Louis. His friend Jane died a week ago.